What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest here on FanArch. I'm your host, Cory Nidoh, and we're going to talk about what direction the Eagles could possibly go in for their first-round pick at pick number 23. Now, the Eagles have plenty of needs, as we've discussed over the last couple of weeks, but we are getting closer to the NFL draft, and Philadelphia will have to formulate a game plan, and there's some positions that are a little bit more of a need than others. You, of course, have interior offensive line, you have edge, you have cornerback, and you have wide receiver at the time being. So, with that said, let's take a look at some mock drafts and some other potential targets that the Eagles might look at pick number 23. And one of the first topics we're going to talk about in terms of position will be wide receiver, because there's a mock draft by NFL.com, and they had the Eagles taking Makai Lemon out of USC at number 23. And Lemon is an interesting wide receiver. Now, he's already drawing some comparisons to Jackson Smith and Jigba, which is really a high comparison and high praise. We just saw JSN get an absolute loaded contract yesterday with the Seattle Seahawks. So that's some high praise and comparison for a wide receiver coming out of college. But Lemon does have some of the resume to back it up. He was a unanimous All-American wide receiver last year. He was the nation's top wide receiver, two-time All-Big Ten selection. And in 2025, he finished in the top 10 in FBS and receiving yards with over 1,100 and receiving touchdowns with 11. And also, he was third in yards per game, averaging 96.3 yards receiving per contest. Now, he was really good in the red zone, high impact red zone threat, with an almost 81% red zone route participation rate. Caught 11 of 12 red zone targets in 2025, scoring on 7 of his final 10 red zone targets. This is a shifty, really solid wide receiver who could be a slot guy for the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about how Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, also in the Big Ten, could be a solid fit, but so could Lemon if they opt to choose that route, if Cooper Jr. is scooped up prior to pick number 23. And obviously, the saga with A.J. Brown continues. Obviously, it doesn't seem like there's a legitimate direction in one way or the other of where the Eagles are going, but if the Eagles do end up deciding to make a trade, maybe after post-June 1, and if they take a wide receiver at 23, that might show Howie Roseman's hand, perhaps, that they are looking, or in fact do have an idea of where they will trade A.J. Brown. If not, they're going to have a loaded wide receiver group once again. Nothing against Darius Cooper. He's been a wonderful story. I just don't know if he is wide receiver 3 ready in the NFL. So if you get a guy like Lemon, who is good off the snap with a good burst, especially when he's got a chance to get the ball, I think that he's going to be a solid player in the NFL. Now, there are some concerns about Lemon. Most importantly, it's his hand size. He does have some smaller hands among wide receivers, and that's certainly something that maybe some scouts and some teams might be a little shy for Lemon and want to shy away from him as a potential first-round pick. His hands measure at 8 3/4 inches. There's not a ton of wide receivers who consistently produce with hands that size. Per CBS Sports, over the past 5 seasons, there have been just 5 instances of a receiver topping 1,000 yards and 3 instances of a wide receiver catching 80-plus passes with sub-9-inch hands. George Pickens is the most recent example of both. Now, again, that's not exactly the most deterring factor why you shouldn't take a player, because Lemon does also have a lot of solid physical traits as well, but it certainly could be a concern for teams moving forward. But I thought Makai Lemon could be a interesting potential first-round pick. Haven't seen him linked to the Eagles all that much. I know there's a lot of buzz around Cooper Jr., but maybe Lemon ends up finding his way to Philadelphia. Now let's talk about some offensive line targets. We know the Eagles, they have some uncertainty with Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson. And you look at some other mock drafts by NFL.com, and they've got the Eagles going in the trenches. At 23 in another one, it's Blake Miller, the Bulldog tackle out of Clemson. He started 54 games with the Tigers. He's a long-framed athletic blocker who could essentially be Lane Johnson's long-term replacement at right tackle. And Miller is just a bulldog. We talked about him on the show prior, but there's a possibility that he could be there at pick number 23. And then you also have Arizona State's Max Iancor, who has been really, really good. He kind of really popped on the scene after a really strong senior day. I do think that he possibly could be a pick for the Eagles. Now, he was late to the game. He didn't play football until later in life. He played basketball. He played soccer. But I think when you look at him, a lot of coaches say, wow, I could do a lot with his build. He played at JUCO for 2 seasons, and then was a transfer portal as a 3-star JUCO recruit, and then he would go on and play at Arizona State, making a run in the college football playoffs. He was named second-team All-Big 12 selection during his redshirt senior year, and in 2025, obviously accepting the invitation where he thrived at the Senior Bowl. Now, I mean, this is a big guy. He is over 320 pounds. He's 6'6". I mean, this guy is a monster. But there are some really fun traits to look at what he can bring to the offensive line for the Eagles. He's got natural foot speed, very good length and wingspan, capable of enveloping rushers with a good blend of short area agility and loose hips. Obviously, the biggest knock on him is the raw talent, given his lack of time playing football. There are some times where his natural athleticism is watered down by poor movement. It will sometimes take some extra steps, but I think this is a guy that really he could fit right in with the Philadelphia Eagles, have him learn from Lane Johnson, from Landon Dickerson, from Jordan Mailata, and obviously the new coaching staff there with Philadelphia to try and get him up to speed. So he is also a potential fit. And also Caden Proctor out of Alabama. Daniel Jeremiah has the Eagles taking the junior tackle out of the Crimson Tide program. Obviously, we know that Howie Roseman likes to be a year early instead of a year late when it comes to addressing needs. We mentioned that Lane Johnson is only under contract until 2027. You could get insurance right now if Caden Proctor falls to you at pick number 23. So those are some offensive line targets I think the Eagles can and will target. I do think that there are 3 solid choices there, and I know it's not the sexy pick. A lot of fans and people would like to see their teams take skill position players, but the Eagles historically build through the trenches, and their front line is starting to get a little older and a little more feeble with some health concerns and some age concerns. And one of these 3 guys would be a great choice for the Philadelphia Eagles. Thirdly, we'll look at a SEC target, Jermod McCoy of Tennessee. We are looking at some of potential cornerbacks here. I mean, this is a guy that can really do a little bit of everything. I just think that this is a really solid player. My co-worker and colleague over at Philly Sports Network, David Neese, has scouted him, and he has a lot of raving reviews on Jermod. He says he's one of the smoothest press corners you'll see. He never lunges, overextends, or panics. He's got great instinct and IQ for football and some ball skills. His recognition skills are advanced. He shows an elite understanding of spacing and pre-snap route intentions, and he disguises coverages, which Vic Fangio loves to do. David says he does this as well as anyone. So I do think that McCoy maybe is a fit at cornerback. He's got some good speed, long speed recovery, explosive burst. There are some health concerns, though, about McCoy, his ACL, and his ability to translate his prior speed to the NFL. David, who scouted him and Tennessee, says that he doesn't have any concerns for McCoy. So, this is a potential first-round pick. You obviously have Quinyon Mitchell. You obviously have Cooper DeJean, but you bring in another top cornerback to really help solidify a cornerback room that also has the addition of Riq Woolen. So thought that was an interesting choice. Again, mock drafts can span across the landscape, but David knows his stuff. If you don't know of him, give him a follow at David Neis, Neisz, PHL over on X. He does some great work covering the college prospects. So that's another guy that you should keep an eye out for. It's the cornerback of Tennessee in Jermod McCoy. So those are some first-round targets that the Philadelphia Eagles could potentially take a look at, could potentially draft at number 23. We'll see how the draft board falls, but there are some solid options for Philadelphia. There's no doubt about it. I think they could go in either direction. I would be rather surprised if the Eagles draft a wide receiver in round one. I think, like I mentioned earlier, if they do, that would be a pretty telltale sign that I think A.J. Brown would be on the move, because I think offensive line, we didn't talk about edge rusher, but I think those two positions are much of a higher need than a wide receiver right now, because they did sign Hollywood Brown to be wide receiver 3. You have Darius Cooper, but again, if the Eagles want another solid slot wide receiver with a little bit more upside than Hollywood Brown, obviously Lemon would be a solid choice as well. So that will do it for this episode of Eagles Latest. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, please drop a comment and a like. Let me know your thoughts. Do you like Lemon as a potential first-round pick for the Eagles? Of those 3 offensive linemen, who do you like the most? And do you see McCoy being a potential fit for Philadelphia? Most importantly, please smash that subscribe button. We are just 5 followers away from 300 subscribers on the channel. It would mean a whole lot as we continue to build this thing here on FanArch. I'm Cory Nidoh saying so long, enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll be back with more Eagles talk tomorrow.